let's talk about Ethers.js. So what is it and why is it important? Why do we need to understand it to become a blockchain developer? So let's revisit our diagram that we've been checking on throughout this bootcamp, where we can see the architecture of a blockchain application, where you have a user here who connects with their wallet to a browser, okay? And then that browser talks to a website, and that website talks directly to a blockchain, where there has smart contracts, okay? And this blockchain is a peer-to-peer network of nodes that all talks to one another, and it stores all the user information, the data, the programs on chain, okay? And so anytime that someone wants to connect to this blockchain, they have to talk to an individual node on the network, okay? And then that node is sort of their interface for the entire blockchain, because again, all the nodes are basically redundant. You just have to connect to one in order to access the blockchain. So how do you do that? Well, you need a few things. You need a link essentially to an Ethereum node. So whether you run that node on your own computer or you use somebody else's node, it doesn't matter. You just need a link to it, all right? And so once you have that link to that node, you can communicate with it with something called JSON RPC. Okay, so JSON RPC is the protocol for talking to Ethereum nodes. And so theoretically, you could make RPC calls directly to the node yourself, or you could use a special library with some other programming language that makes that a lot easier. And that's exactly where Ethers.js comes into play. It is a JavaScript library that lets you interact with the Ethereum blockchain and make RPC calls to a node, so you can do things like get information from smart contracts, call their functions, send transactions on behalf of your wallet account, call smart contract functions, whatever you want to do on the blockchain. Ethers.js is essentially the library that lets you do that inside of JavaScript. So you can use Ethers.js in whatever context you want to. If you have a JavaScript website that talks to a blockchain, you can use Ethers.js to basically turn your website into a blockchain website. So, we talked about how your wallet, like MetaMask, essentially turns your web browser into a blockchain browser, because most blockchains don't support connectivity to the blockchain out of the box. That's why you need a wallet application. All right. Similarly, most websites aren't going to support connectivity to the blockchain outside the box. And that's exactly what you need a library like Ethers.js for. It's going to handle all the blockchain interactions if you want to, connect to it. So Ethers.js is also going to link to your MetaMask wallet to take your account information whenever you're signing transactions on the website to put them on the blockchain. So it's going to handle that connection as well. So, that's just one context in which you can use Ethers.js. If you want to write some sort of JavaScript backend application, then you can definitely use Ethers.js in a JavaScript environment on a web server somewhere. If you want to write your own custom scripts on your computer, to talk to the blockchain, you can use Ethers.js in that context. Anywhere where you can run JavaScript, you can use Ethers.js to talk to the blockchain. Now, the main way we're going to do it in the Capstone project is definitely inside of a client-side application, which we're going to dig heavily into. But what I want to do in this video is give you a quick crash course to Ethers.js and basically how it works by writing some scripts on our computer so that you can see what it looks like outside the context of building an application and just focus on the fundamentals of Ethers.js itself. And then you'll quickly get a much deeper understanding of it as we start building out that Capstone project. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the basics of Ethers.js. All right, so you can point to this in the documentation. This is docs.ethersjs.io. All right, we're going to reference this as we go through it. But really what I'm going to do is just give you a tour of Ethers.js by example. So I'm going to write some code with Ethers.js. You don't have to necessarily follow along with this, okay? If you want to just watch me do this, this will give you, the basics. But if you do want to code along, you're going to need this GitHub repository here. So I'll put a link to this down in the description below. This is github.com/Dapp University/Ethers examples. This is a public repo that just highlights what Ethers can do, just gives you an introduction to it. You can see all these different examples here, okay? So, you do need some dependencies installed in order to follow along with this. I know this video is a little bit out of order. You can go to the Capstone project and install Node.js on your computer. That's the main dependency that you need in order to do this. You can just go to your terminal and see if you have Node installed already, by the way, Node-V. And if you don't have Node installed yet, you can go to that Capstone section for the dependencies and install it so that you can follow along with this. Just make sure you come back to this video. So you can grab the code from GitHub. You can, download a zip file here, or you can clone it. All right, you can do git clone and then paste in the URL here. All right, I've already done this, so it's gonna, yell at me here. But once you've downloaded it, you can say cd ethers examples. Okay, and then you want to do npm install to install the dependencies. All right, hit enter. I've already done this, so I'm gonna skip this step. But you should wait for it to finish, and you'll see a success message. Okay. And so now I'm just going to open that project in my text editor like this. So you can see the code here. We've got these examples inside of here. Example 1, example 2, example 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. I'm just going to do the first few examples. You can look through the rest of them as an exercise if you'd like, and check out the accompanying resources in the GitHub repository. But let's just take a look at see how Ethers.js works inside this script format. So again, we've got these individual scripts that sort of highlight, what Ethers can do. And I want to focus on some of those things without the overhead of trying to think about them while you're building an entire application, because sometimes that can be just a little bit too overwhelming when you're trying to look at everything at once. Just want to focus on one thing at a time here. So what I'm going to do is clear out some of the code inside of here. All right, so let's actually just code it out. All right, step by step. All right, so the first thing that you want to do whenever you're writing a script with Ethers.js or you're using it in type of any application is you need to pull the library into your file first. Okay, so we've installed, Ethers.js inside of our package.json file here. We're in a JavaScript, a node environment. So it understands how to import this because it's already in our node modules directory. So we can import Ethers like this. We say const ethers, and we put it inside these curly braces like this, and we say equals require, and then we use these quotation marks, ethers. All right, so ethers is just the name of the library that we're pulling in from our dependencies here, and then we save it to a variable like this. All right, now we have access to ethers inside of the project. Now, let's talk about how to connect ethers to the blockchain. So we can see inside the Ethers documentation here. All right, you can just click on the Getting Started tab and then, click on Connecting to Ethereum RPC. And you can see that they show us some example code here. It just says you can create something called an Ethers provider. So what is a provider? Well, a provider is basically something that gives you the connection to the Ethereum network. You can see a connection to the Ethereum network, aka a provider right here. Okay. So we're going to create a provider inside of our code like this. We'll literally just copy this, what they have from the documentation here. So const provider equals new ethers providers JSON RPC provider. All right. So remember I said a second ago, whenever we're talking to the blockchain, we need to connect to an Ethereum node. And we do that over a protocol called JSON RPC. Again, JSON RPC is just the standard that lets you talk to Ethereum nodes. And Ethers implements that standard so that you can do it in JavaScript without having to write RPC calls yourself. Okay. So we need to create a new RPC provider just like this. And we need to pass a link to an Ethereum node. Because again, anytime you connect to the blockchain, you need to connect to a node and you need a URL or a link to it. So luckily, you can do this a few different ways. You can register for, you can run your own Ethereum node locally or on a remote server. You can sign up for an external node provider account like Infura or Alchemy. But we can also, for this purpose, just use a free Ethereum node exposed by Cloudflare. So Cloudflare is a web infrastructure company that gives us a link to an Ethereum node that we can just read information from like this. So https://cloudflare-eth.com. Okay. And we can assign this to a variable. We say const RPC URL. All right. And then we want to pass in this RPC URL right here. So just pass in like this. All right. So now we have our library. We have our connection to the blockchain. So that's the first step. So now what I want to do is show you how to use Ethers.js just to get some basic information from the blockchain. Now we're connected to the Ethereum mainnet. So what I want to do is check an account balance. So here I've connected to Etherscan and I've found an address, okay, that has, a significant amount of cryptocurrency in it. You can see that it has, this many Ethers, so almost 2 million Ether, okay. So what I'm going to do is take this account balance. You can find any account balance you want to on Etherscan that has cryptocurrency in the wallet. And we can store that into a variable here. So we'll say const address equals this address. All right, and I'll bump this up so you can see it better. Okay. And now what we're going to do is show you how to actually talk to the blockchain and fetch this balance with Ethers. So it's pretty easy. We can just say provider. Okay, so we have this Ethers provider right here and say get balance. All right, and then I'm going to pass in the address. Okay, and then right here, I'm going to say const balance equals await. All right, we're going to get into the async await pattern when we start coding out the Capstone project. I'm not going to stop and explain every single part of this, okay? We'll get to that in the Capstone project, but for now, just know you need to do this await keyword. And I'm going to wrap this inside of a function, because if we're going to call this, we need to actually create a function to call the script. So a const main, all right, equals async. All right, we're going to get into this a lot more in Capstone, but I just want to give you an introduction now. Take this and move it inside of here. And then we'll say console.log. And then we'll say, we'll just log the balance. We'll say balance. Okay. And then we're going to call this function, we'll say main. And that's it. All right. So now we can go to our terminal and run this. We can say node. So this is how you execute node scripts on your computer. You say node, that's the executable. And you say examples. And we'll say 1 accounts. And let's see if it works. Hopefully it works. Yeah. There we go. Awesome. So it did work, and it looks kind of funny here. It returns a big number in JavaScript, but we can pretty easily convert this to string, say to string. And then we can see like this. Awesome, there you go. So this looks like a really long number, which looks a lot more than 2 million. That's because this is the way value. We'll get into more of that in the Capstone project. But we need to format this and add some decimal places. So we can use a special helper with Ethers that lets us do this, like this. All right, we can basically just say, let's just see this, Ethers utils format Ether, and then pass in the balance. That'll convert from way to Ether. And boom, there you go. That adds the decimal places. So we will explain this much more in the Capstone project, but for now, I just want to show you quickly how to get the balance from a real account on the Ethereum mainnet and connect your project with Ethers.js with an RPC URL. So that's it. That's the really easy thing. Now, I'm going to show you one more example, which is how to actually interact with smart contracts. So we'll go to this second example here, and we will code this out. So let's just take out all of this. Let's tell you what, let's not take everything out. We'll keep our main function, because no point in reinventing the wheel. We've already done that. Let's take out this part. And then let's go ahead and take our boilerplate code from the previous example and then put this in here. I'm just making this easier than the existing code that was inside of the code solution here. You know, you can go through those resources if you want extra practice, but I'm just going to show you quickly, how to get up and running. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the DAI stablecoin. All right, so this is a smart contract. It's an ERC20 token that's deployed live to the Ethereum blockchain. So I'm going to show you how to talk to smart contracts with Ethers.js, okay? So this will just be a basic smoke test. Again, we'll get into more of this in the Capstone project. But for now, what I'm going to do is copy the DAI stablecoin address. This should be in the code solution. You can also search for the DAI stablecoin on Etherscan and find this address. Just make sure it matches the one that I'm using in this video, okay? And you can save that like this, a const address, okay? And then we'll paste this in here. All right, we'll save that. I'm actually going to use single quotes here just for consistency. All right, and so now we need to create a JavaScript version of this smart contract. So here inside the Ethers documentation, we can see them doing that. So basically, if we want to talk to the smart contract of the blockchain, we need to create an Ethers version, a JavaScript version like this. We just say new Ethers .contract, and then we need 3 pieces of information. Okay, we need the address of the smart contract on the network, the ABI, and then the signer or provider. So we have some of these information already, but let's just go ahead and add this to our code. So if we want to create the contract, we do it like this. We say const contract, and that's going to equal new ethers, capital C contract, and then we're going to pass in the address, and then we're going to pass in the ABI. So we don't have the ABI yet, I'll just say ABI, and then provider. Okay, so the address comes from here for the DAI token. The provider comes from here, which we created in the last section. And now let's talk about the ABI. So what is that? Well, the ABI is just the abstract binary interface for the contract itself. So that sounds like a mouthful. What does that mean? If you go to the contract tab here on Etherscan, you can see this thing called an ABI. All right. So this is just a JavaScript, a JSON description of the contract interface. It basically describes what functions the contract has, what their arguments are, any public variables that the contract has, so that you can understand how it works. It's not the full smart contract code, right? It's not the Solidity code. It's just the interface to tell you like what the code does so that you can call the functions with a library like ethers.js. And so we need this ABI and the address to create the smart contract. And one thing I could do is I could just copy this entire ABI, okay, and then give it to the ethers.js library. But one thing I want to teach you about, which is pretty cool, is that Ethers supports human readable ABIs. All right, so instead of copying that big old blob and putting it into my file here, I can create a human readable ABI, which is just an array with the names of the Solidity functions that the contract has. So you can see an example here. If the contract has a constructor function, we can just paste in what the constructor function looks like, the function name, and then the arguments. And then you can see function transfer from, okay, all that type of stuff. So I'm going to do that right now. And so the cool thing is I know that DAI is an ERC20 token, and all I want to do is get the ERC20, get the ERC20 interface. So I don't want to copy this entire thing. I can just create a new human readable ABI inside of here above the address like this. Oops, that's not it. That's the one from Etherscan. So I don't want to copy that. I want to do this. So I'm going to say const ERC20 ABI. Okay, this is all capitals here. And then I give it an array. Okay, and then I can just give it the functions I care about. So I know that the ERC20 standard requires that the smart contract have a name. I know that it requires it has a symbol, a total supply, a balance of. Okay, you could literally just go to the code here, or you could look at the ERC20 standard. So let's just see that. We talked about the ERC20 standard in previous videos. You could literally just go look at the ERC20 standard and copy some of these functions. All right. You could literally just take this and then go to your file here and then paste in, the name. All right. And then you could build out whatever functions you want to without having to know the entire ABI from the blockchain. So that's what I've done here. And so that's the cool thing is we can just import only what we need, not that entire big blob, which you might have seen if you've used other, other applications. So now what I'm going to do is with all this information, we can actually fetch information and we can fetch data from this smart contract. So we're just going to read stuff from the DAI token. So we'll say const name equals await contract.name. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and console log this. I'll say name. So let's run the script. Node examples 2. All right. So we got a little issue here. Let me just fix that. Okay. So I forgot to update the ABI. So I had this placeholder ABI variable here. We want to actually add the ERC20 ABI. All right. So we can just do that. And then try again. Okay, there you go. DAI stablecoin. We're actually reading the name directly from the blockchain. Okay. And so now we can get some more information like this. We can get the symbol. So I'll give some more space here. Okay, so name, and then we can do symbol. All right. We just do that so it's cleaner. All right, so DAI stablecoin and DAI. And then we can also get the total supply, like this. And then put in total supply here. All right, and then go here. So let's do total supply to string. There we go. And of course, we can format this with decimal places. I'm going to leave that to you as an exercise. Okay. And then finally, what we're going to do is get the balance of a large DAI holder account. So I can go to the DAI page and then click on the tracker. Okay. And then I can look at the holders. All right. And then I can, literally just find any account here and then copy their address. I can just copy like this and then go back to my project and I can just say, just paste it right here for now. All right. And so we can get the balance of this like this, say const balance, and just say, oh, wait, contract. So contract, is here. And then balance of, and then paste this in. So I'll kill this over here so you can see it. All right. So contract balance of, and then we can just log this to the console. Balance to string. All right, save that. And then go to the terminal. And there we go. There's the balance. Okay, so that is an introduction to Ethers.js and how you can, talk to the blockchain inside of any JavaScript environment, whether it's on your in a script on your computer. We're definitely going to use this heavily in the Capstone project inside of a full stack JavaScript application, also in the hard hat environment when we're writing scripts against the smart contracts. But I want to give you this introduction to Ethers kind of just on its own. So sometimes it's a little overwhelming when you're trying to look at everything all at once. So definitely you can check out the rest of these lessons as an exercise. Okay, you can look at this if you want to sign up for a different node account to complete some of these. Okay, you want to talk about how to send transactions with your account, then definitely go check out the rest of these as an exercise. But for now, that's a good introduction to Ethers, and I'll catch you in the next video.